Good morning, everybody. I'm Donald McCarthy, here with you to discuss pronoun usage, which appears on both the SAT and the ACT on a regular basis. However, it also includes something that people seem to want to know about in day-to-day life, which is who versus whom. A very common point of confusion, we will say, for people. I get a lot of, I'll go with interesting definitions about how to use those two words. But after today, you will know for certain how to use them and that they're not nearly as scary as they first seem. So, when do these who versus whom, or to talk about the genre as a whole, pronouns, when do they appear? They appear on the ACT in the first section, the grammar section, and on the SAT in the second section, which is where their grammar section is. For those of you studying for June's tests, you'll want to note that the ACT and SAT grammar sections are virtually identical, the only difference being the timing. There are a few other small differences, no doubt, but that's the main difference, the timing. Otherwise, they're really quite close to each other. So as you prep for the ACT's grammar, you're also prepping for most of the SAT's grammar too, which is really helpful. So let's discuss a pronoun. So a pronoun is just a word that steps in for the proper noun. So when you're talking about your friend, let's say you have a friend named Rick. You're talking about what Rick did. You don't keep saying Rick, Rick, Rick. Eventually, you start saying he. Well, when you start saying he, that's what counts as a pronoun. It's standing in for the proper noun. The previously mentioned noun is known as the antecedent, but you don't need to know that term on the test. As a matter of fact, there's no grammar terms you need to know in the test. You just need to be able to pick the right answer. They're not going to ask you, what a pronoun is. But if you don't know what it is, it can make answering some of the questions difficult. So we try to avoid as much terminology here as possible, but sometimes it is necessary. So when you're picking a pronoun, sometimes there's a problem because you might be talking about multiple things. For instance, I went outside to pick up the sticks. I threw it in the garbage can. There's a little bit of a problem there, isn't there? Did anybody hear it? When I write it out, you'll probably see it. But if you can hear it, that's good too. So in our first sentence, what we're picking up are the sticks. In the second sentence, we run into a problem. Because we were saying we went outside to pick up sticks, but then in this sentence, we say it, but sticks is plural, it is singular. So that's a problem. What I have to do is make sure my pronoun agrees with my previous noun. So in this case, I'd have to cross out it and probably change it to I threw them away, which fixes it. Now, most people can identify that when they're reading. They're like, wait a second, it is singular, but sticks was plural. So when they give you a question like that, it's nice because it's relatively easy to spot. Where things get a little hairier is when we have to figure out if the pronoun is acting as a subject or acting as an object. And then I think we also need to define what a subject and an object are. Luckily, it's actually really easy. The subject of a sentence is what does the action. An object has the action done to it. So if we go back to our sentence up here, where I said, I went outside to pick up the sticks. I is the subject. The sticks is the object. Why is that? Well, I am doing an action. I went. The sticks aren't doing anything. They're being picked up, but the sticks aren't choosing to be picked up. I'm doing the picking up. Sticks don't have a choice, so therefore they are the object. So if I didn't want to say sticks, I could say I went outside to pick up them. Kind of sounds weird, but technically it's correct. I wouldn't say I went outside to pick up they. Why is that? Well, the answer here is given in example 1. If the pronoun is a subject, you would say they. If the pronoun is an object, you'd say them. Here's the thing. I guarantee you actually already know this. You might not realize you know it, but when you speak, if you said you went outside to pick up they, you probably wouldn't say that. You'd be like, wait a second, that doesn't sound right. What am I saying? But when you see it on a test, a lot of times people start to second guess themselves. And that's where they run into trouble. But a lot of this stuff is intuitive because we've been speaking for so long that we know how to say it, even if we don't realize we know how to say it. So let's discuss some of these subject versus object words. Like I and me. This one makes a lot of sense. You would never say me went to the store. You would say I went to the store. You wouldn't say me woke up. You would say I woke up. Why is that? Because you're the one waking up. But I might say Rick threw me the ball. Why did I go with me there? Well, Rick is doing the throwing, not me. And there we come to our who versus whom. Yes. So I have some good news. Who versus whom is usually pretty easy. You just have to decide if it's doing an action or not. For instance, who threw the ball? Well, the who is doing the throwing. So when would be whom now? Can't even think of when. Well, there are times where it is. So, I don't know whom I'm going to throw the ball to. Hate to end with a preposition, but. So, why is it whom there? Well, the whom isn't throwing the ball. I am throwing the ball. The whom is being thrown the ball. In other words, they're receiving the ball. Therefore, they're the object, not the subject. Okay. But you might be saying to yourself, that's all well and good, Donald. But is there a way I can cheat on the test and know which one the answer will be? There's not quite, but there are a few clues, which I will share with you before we go to some example questions. First off is this. We usually do in day-to-day life use who more often than whom. So if you come to a question, the answer is more likely to be who than whom. That doesn't mean whom is never the answer. It's just that who is more likely. But here's the big clue. If you have a preposition before the word, preposition being words like of, to, for, it's always whom after it. And I've noticed on both the SAT and ACT, this trick works really, really well. So when you see a pronoun, you're always going to go with whom. And this is basically a surefire way to get it right. Now, in a couple of the examples earlier that I used, there wasn't the pronoun clue. So does that mean you can't always rely on it? Well, it does, but for some reason the ACT and SAT will usually include a preposition in these questions. So while I can invent questions where whom is used without a preposition, on the tests, they do like to use the prepositions. Don't know why, but they do. And that's a great pattern to spot. Many of these standardized tests are about finding patterns more than anything else. All right, so let's look finally at an example sentence. And this one, thankfully, doesn't involve who versus whom. We were both completely surprised when the school honored Thomas and I with top academic awards. So I want to point to something here, and that is that well, a lot of times people feel like I sounds smart. Thomas and I, that's the way a professor would speak. Well, I is not always correct. So in this case, we have to think about our subject versus object. So is the I an object or is the I a subject? Well, let's think. Is the I doing an action here? No, I don't think it is. The school is honoring Thomas and I. So the school is doing the action. Therefore, it should be Thomas and me. Because me is an object word. Now, right down here, got for you a little tip. If you remove the name of the friend, the correct case becomes clear. What does that mean? All right, pretend Thomas isn't there. It's probably much easier to tell what's right. We were both completely surprised when the school honored I with top academic awards. Yeah, that's not sounding great. So I think that also tells us something needs to be changed. So it's good to know the rule, but it's also helpful to know the tip. All right, let's move down to the next one. Example 2. The inspector who rang in the middle of the night asked us if we had seen anything suspicious. The inspector. Interesting. Must be in England, right? We don't usually use the word inspector here, but I've read too many British crime novels. I know they use that word all the time. The inspector who rang in the middle of the night asked us if we had seen anything suspicious. So a lot of students come back and they tell me B. Why B? Well, because they think whom is like the smart way to say something, kind of going back to the word I before. But I want you guys to remember something. There's no quote-unquote smart way to say something. There's just the correct way to say something, which is that sometimes who is correct, sometimes whom is correct. So is the who doing an action? Is it who rang? Let's see, the who is doing the ringing, right? Who rang? Well, it seems to me like it is doing an action there. So let's go back to the top. We said for the subject, you go with who. And this time it's doing an action. So it seems like we gotta stick with who. And hey, here's that tip I mentioned, which is that 99% of the time, whom will directly follow a preposition. If you don't see a preposition immediately before it, whom is wrong. Yeah, you could come across an exception. I mean, on many of these tests, you always could, but generally we don't see those exceptions. The tests, for whatever reason, are extremely repetitive in the grammar section. This is why the grammar section is such a great one to study. Because if you want to raise your points for June, which is weirdly only 2 months away, if you want to raise your points for June, you want to take a look at the grammar section. It's so repetitive that it's easier to improve on than the other areas. Now, I didn't say it was an easier area, just that it's easier to improve on. One other last bit of information before we go to the final example. This answer was A, no change. This is, I feel like it's a misunderstanding. But a lot of students come to me assuming the answer is very rarely going to be no change. This is actually incorrect. I see no change about as often as I see any other choice. So don't get it into your head that no change can't be the answer. I have people like really flip out if they have like no change twice in a row. Are the odds of that good? No, but it's not impossible. This last one doesn't come up too often, but it comes up from time to time, and it's really easy if you know the rule, so it's a good one to know. Reflexive pronouns emphasize the original noun or pronoun without commas. In other words, when you're really making sure the person knows who you're talking about. He himself will oversee the coordination of the 5 international offices. So here you're really showing that he himself, meaning probably only him, is going to oversee it. Basically, it's emphasis. Almost like you're being dramatic. We all know that person who's dramatic, right, when they speak. And if you don't know that person who's dramatic, I don't know, might be you. So, he himself will oversee the coordination of the 5 international offices. Here's the thing, the correct answer is C. But when people say it because they emphasize himself, a lot of people think that there needs to be commas there, but there's not. So when you're saying he himself, I myself, she herself, there's no commas. Like I said, it doesn't come up a ton, but it comes up from time to time, and if you know this rule, man, you're always going to get it right. So, thank you for once again popping by to hear me discuss some grammar rules. So I just want to discuss a few things about our services, but also some general information about the upcoming tests. Just this morning, for instance, I got an email from one of the students that I tutor, and they asked me, Donald, what's going on with June? I hadn't heard from them in a few weeks with everything going on. And so I responded back. I said, the June tests are on. And they had no idea. They thought, oh, I thought those were canceled. So I do want to make that clear to people. The SAT and ACT have repeatedly said that as of now, the June tests are happening. So you definitely want to proceed as if they are. I've also had a few students ask, will there be extra tests over the summer? That's a possibility too. We don't know for sure, but it's definitely a possibility. The SAT has alluded to trying to add dates to make things up. I don't know if the ACT will, because the only ACT missing is the April one, so they may not need to. But I would definitely assume that the tests are coming in June as of right now. It's possible they may push them back a week or two, but it certainly seems like they're planning to go full steam ahead. So there are a number of ways you can study with us if you'd like. You can use the online self-paced program, which you can get a discount on here. You can also use our online classes. We have these power classes, which have started a week ago, but they're basically, you can take them whenever you want. They're about one subject on the ACT. We also have ongoing classes. In other words, it's like a classroom class, except it's online. And they usually last about 8 to 9 sessions. and they cover all areas of the ACT. You get to engage, talk to the teacher, and you have to, unfortunately, I'm sure it's sad to hear, do homework, but yes, that's how we improve our timing, so that you can better master the ACT. I, for instance, teach some of those classes, as do my colleagues. So you can sign up on methodtestprep.com/classes, which are offered at various times, so that you can kind of take advantage of the fact that you don't have to go to school right now. Method Test Prep also offers tutoring. I, for instance, tutor the SAT, ACT. I also tutor English. In other words, writing, that's a big one. The college essay, that's another big one. However, many of you guys are probably taking AP classes. And recently you just found out that the AP tests are going ahead in May and they're going to be online. So if you have any concerns about the AP and you want to have some tutoring, let us know. We tutor all subjects in addition to the SAT and ACT. We have a lot of bright minds around Method Test Prep. So with any questions or concerns, you can call and we'll have somebody who can help you out with tutoring. Definitely a great thing to have during these kind of weird transition times as we work online. So just let us know how we can help. All right, guys, it was great to once again see you all. And I hope that you feel a little more comfortable with who versus whom. Now you can kind of brag about it when you're out, that you know who versus whom. Unfortunately, I have found this doesn't actually improve your social life, but it does improve your ACT and SAT scores. All right, guys, have a great day. Bye.